Alright, so since the year 1967, at the end of every NFL season, a Super Bowl champion has been crowned. And every single team that has ever made it all the way to the Super Bowl and won is a great team, obviously. But just because every trophy shines just as bright, it doesn't mean they are all created equal. So in this video, I'm going to present you with 3 past Super Bowl champions, tell you a bunch of repulsive stats about each team, and some good ones too, and at the end of this video, it's up to you to decide which one of these NFL teams is the worst team to ever be crowned as Super Bowl champions. So, the 2011 Giants have got to be a contender for the weirdest team to ever exist in the history of the league. Like most Giants teams during the, I guess, Eli Manning era, they seem to get hot at the right time, but this squad was not your average Giants team. No, not at all. Because this year, the Giants only had 2 Pro Bowlers on the entire team, one being first-team All-Pro and safety expert Jason Pierre-Paul, and the other was Eli Manning? Am I reading this right? But all jokes aside, the often volatile and inconsistent, to say the least, Eli Manning had pretty easily the best season of his entire career, throwing for almost 5,000 yards, 29 touchdowns, and only 16 interceptions, which actually is a really low number for him. And somehow, Eli managed to do all of this with a rushing attack led by 650-yard rusher Ahmad Bradshaw and 570-yard rusher Brandon Jacobs. Both solid backs, but this year combined together to form the actual worst rushing attack in the league. I'm not lying. The Super Bowl champion Giants finished dead last in the league in yards and average yards per run. And not only that, but the Giants teams of the 2000s and early 2010s were always known for having bruising and overwhelming defenses that beat down opponents and kept every game winnable. But with this team, that's just not the case at all, because the Giants had statistically one of the worst defenses in the league, with a defense ranked so low you would think that this team went like, I don't know, 8-8 or something like that. And, well, they kinda did. Because in the regular season, this Giants team went 9-7, and throughout all 16 games, only played 4 teams with a winning record. And in those games, they lost 3 out of 4. Let me say that one more time. The team that went on to win the motherfucking Super Bowl only beat one single team throughout the entire regular season with a winning record. I wonder who that team was. Let me just check real... Oh, of course. Anyway, even though the Giants had one of the easiest schedules of all time, they still barely managed to squeak into the playoffs at 9-7 with a win percentage of 0.562. But this is where things turn around for this Giants team, because so far it's been all negatives, but I promise it gets better. Because going into the playoffs, the Giants knocked off the 10-6 Falcons, then moved on to beat the Packers and 49ers, both teams that they had lost to in the regular season. And you can't be called the worst Super Bowl winner ever if you don't get absurdly lucky to punch your ticket to the Super Bowl, as the 49ers replacement kick returner Kyle Williams and professional double agent for the Giants fumbles twice and ruins any hope for a 49ers Super Bowl appearance. And it seems like some things never change. Regardless, the Giants matched up with the Patriots in the Super Bowl, a rematch of Super Bowl 42 4 years prior. And somehow, they did it. They won. Eli Manning led the Giants to the Super Bowl, all while facing statistically the second hardest strength of schedule in NFL playoff history. Okay, so I know it got a little better near the end, but before you crown the Giants as the worst team to ever win a Super Bowl, please allow me to enlighten you on a previous version of the team the Giants had beaten in that year's Super Bowl, the 2001 Patriots. Okay, calm down. I know what you're thinking. One of these Patriots dynasty teams being called one of the worst Super Bowl winners ever? Well, this particular Patriots team was very different than the others. As when the 2001 season began, Tom Brady was just some random no-name 6th-round pick on a Patriots team that was led by a guy named Bill Belichick, someone who only brought controversy as a coach wherever he went. And through the first 2 weeks of the season, things looked absolutely awful, as the Patriots' most valuable player, Pro Bowl quarterback Drew Bledsoe, got folded like a lawn chair and was ruled out for the foreseeable future. Now, to say that this Patriots team was dead in the water at this point would be the understatement of a lifetime, because if we look back at some Week 3 power rankings from this season, people literally thought the Patriots, the same team that would somehow win the Super Bowl that year, was the worst team in the entire NFL. Not the worst defense or run game, no. The worst team. Anyway, once Tom Brady stepped in, things started going better, as he had a quarterback record of 11-3 during the regular season. But that statistic is heavily skewed, as through 10 weeks the Patriots team was 5-5 and were able to reel off some wins against deplorable teams. But unlike the Giants, they were able to beat 2 winning teams in that same stretch of games, so maybe that's worth something. Regardless of their slightly above average 11-5 record, they were able to win the AFC East and host a divisional game against the Raiders. And, yep, in order to be on this prestigious list, you have to scam another team out of a huge playoff win, and I'm sure you already know what happens here. So after dispatching the Raiders in the divisional round, they played the Steelers in the AFC Championship game, where they came in as 10-point underdogs. Now, I think this is a good time to mention that after the Patriots offense had lost their Pro Bowl quarterback in week 2, they also had an inconsistent defense at best for a majority of the year, as throughout the regular season, they had allowed the 6th most points in the league and were not thought of as a dominant unit. Anyway, back to that Steelers game, because Tom Brady, who remember was in his first season of actually starting at quarterback and was nowhere near the player he would eventually become, ended up getting injured early in the game, and Drew Bledsoe returned to replace him. So Bledsoe and the Patriots limped to a 24-17 win, as the defense held Steelers flash-in-the-pan quarterback Cordell Stewart to a quarterback rating of 45.2 in the victory. So somehow, here we are, Super Bowl 36, where the Patriots came into the game against the greatest show on turf, Rams, as the 5th biggest underdogs in Super Bowl history, as the spread going into the game was -14 in favor of the Rams. Anyway, the Patriots defense did a good job of stifling the Rams' great offense for the first half until they started coming back. But after one, arguably, fluky drive from, at the time, some random 6th round pick at quarterback, the Patriots got a good look at a deep field goal for the win, and it went in. It should also be said that the Patriots finished this Super Bowl scoring well under the average points scored for an average Super Bowl team, let alone a winning team, and that seems to be a theme for Tom Brady. Now, in favor of the Patriots, and similar to the Giants, they did have to go through some tough competition, having the 7th hardest road to winning a Super Bowl, but their run also just seemed lucky. And people seem to believe that statement even more, because the very next year in the 2002 season, that same Patriots team straight up missed the playoffs with a full 16 games of Tom Brady at quarterback, who missed the Pro Bowl and really didn't look like the player we know today in the slightest. So yeah, to say the least, this Patriots team was nothing like their dynasty teams they would muster later in the decade, and this 0-1 team could easily go down as the worst Super Bowl winning team ever. But please just wait until I tell you about the 1970 Colts. Before I talk about this team, in terms of talent, of course, a team from 50 years ago isn't going to be as good as a team from 2011, but I think the best way to measure a team's greatness is relative to their own era, so that's how I'm going to compare these teams to one another. Now, with that being said, shockingly, there wasn't that much great footage of this team on the internet, so the eyeball test isn't going to apply for this team as much as the others, but let's just get right into it and let me tell you about the 1970 Colts. Now, as we look at this Colts team, we can see that they have a great record at 11-2-1, but that record does not tell the full story of this team. Around this time period, the NFL and a rival league, the AFL, had recently merged together, and at the time it was common knowledge that on average NFL teams were better than AFL teams by a significant margin. So the Colts, being an NFL team, automatically benefited from this change, as they could pad their win stats by playing inferior competition more often throughout the regular season. So you'd expect this Colts team, a team that would go on to win the Super Bowl, to absolutely steamroll the slightly inferior AFL teams, right? Well, although they did only lose 2 games and tied one with previous AFL teams, a fair amount of these games ended in a 1-possession difference, and not the overwhelming dominance you would be looking for in a Super Bowl winner. And similar to that Giants team, the 1970 Colts only played a few teams with a winning record, except instead of the Giants 4, the Colts only played 2 teams with a winning record. And let's see how those games went. Well then. Now, okay, they did play the Dolphins twice that year and won one of the games, so fine. They went 1-2 against teams with a winning record that year. Congratulations, that's a Super Bowl winner if I've ever seen one. The Colts also faced the easiest regular season schedule ever by any Super Bowl champion, with an average opponent winning percentage of 2.352. Anyway, back in those days, home field advantage throughout the playoffs was assigned on a rotating basis. Why, I couldn't tell you, but it just so happened to be the year that the AFC East was given home field advantage. So, woohoo, congratulations Colts, you get home field advantage, I guess. Now, the Colts went on to win their divisional matchup against the Bengals, led by Jess Phillips and Virgil Carter, and moved on to play against the Raiders, who were led by Daryl LaMonica, who preemptively got injured after just 4 passes, which forced George Blanda, yeah, the same guy who played in the 1940s, to play quarterback in a playoff game in the 70s. And yeah, that didn't go well for them, as the Colts advanced to the Super Bowl against the Cowboys, where the Colts would spread their wings and show their dominance as a true Super Bowl winning team, as they committed 7 turnovers in the Super Bowl, 3rd most all time, and by far the most turnovers in a Super Bowl win. Like, look, it's not even close. And the turnovers were so bad that even though the Colts won the game with a miserable score of 16-13, it was decided that it was better to give the Super Bowl MVP awarded to the most valuable player in the Super Bowl to Cowboys linebacker Chuck Howley, and even he refused to accept it. Now, unlike the Giants and Patriots before them, this Colts team had one of the easiest paths to a Super Bowl win ever, with the 5th lowest opponent win percentages in NFL history. But to say something in favor of this Colts team, they had incredible talent with Hall of Famers like Bubba Smith and Johnny Unitas, and they got the job done no matter how ugly it was. So, what do you think? Which of these 3 NFL teams is worthy of the title of the worst Super Bowl winner of all time? But if you enjoyed this video, then like and comment, because it really helps the channel a lot. And if you like this video, then watch this video right here on some of the craziest coincidences in NFL history. It's really good, trust me. Anyways, until next time.